Good morning and welcome to the Solution Finders. Today, Serenna Wagner is here. She's a musician and she has a company called This Inner Voice Music Therapy and Coaching.
That's
And
right.
hi, very nice to see you here.
It's lovely to see you, Una. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. And yeah, tell me a little bit about like your love for music and uh, how did you find about music therapy?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's where to start, really. It could be a very long story, so I'll try and keep it fairly brief. But I've basically just loved music since I was a child, and um, growing up, as we were just saying, I sort of found music quite regulating, I think, for my well-being and nervous system. Not that I knew that particularly at the time, but I always just really enjoyed practicing the piano, and I also learned lots of other instruments as well. I like the violin and the flute. Um, but actually, the instrument I enjoyed the best was singing. So when I found singing, which was not till I got to university really, and I ended up by a series of strange circumstances in an opera, not having any background really in opera or singing to speak of. And then I just got totally hooked on opera singing. I could not get enough of it. I just loved singing with other people so much. Not so much singing in unison, but singing in harmony. So that feeling of making music with other people, and you'd be on your line, and other people were, you could listen to them and hear their sounds all around you, and I just enjoyed that experience so much. And actually all the acting as well, which, for quite a sort of shy person surprised me, to be on a stage with a costume and lights, and I really enjoyed it. So that from then I sort of thought, well, this is what I really want to do. So I trained, I then had to go to music college to train. And then I found out it was very competitive and had to work out how to do that. But I did finally get in and I trained in opera. And then I did a lot of opera singing. It's hard to make a living full time out of opera singing, to be honest with you. So I did that. And I also did a lot of teaching of music. Um, and then one day, by chance, I stumbled across music therapy because I remember saying to a friend, I love doing music. I was at English National Opera in the chorus at the time. And I'm enjoying this, but it just feels like, it's still only people that can afford it. And, I like it, but it's not sort of helping people really. And of course it is because people are enjoying it and they're sort of taken to a different place and it's a sort of transformation. And we were just saying the joy of being to a performance is wonderful, but I was thinking really more practically. And she said, well, have you heard of music therapy? And I was like, oh. So I went to look it all up. And then when I found that you could actually genuinely, like scientifically help people using different techniques, using music, I decided, I must train in this. So then I had to go do another degree, so it's another master's, because it's quite hard to be a music therapist. You have to do quite a serious training, and of course, you're dealing with vulnerable individuals, who I see now on a daily basis, really. Um, and I've never really looked back. I mean, I just absolutely love it. And I worked for a number of other people, and then more recently, I decided to start my own company because I wanted to do things in my own way, really. Sort of combining the um, beauty and artistry of music, but with the kind of sciencey, um, sort of the science-backed research methods for actually helping people and, meeting all the sort of therapeutic goals and that side of it as well. So yes, that nice combination that I like to present, really. So sorry, that was a very long waffly answer to the question.
Like a combination of like science and creativity.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So when I sort of talk about my offering or whatever, I sort of say, it's a combination of the magic and the mechanics. So when I trained in neurologic music therapy, which is like this really sort of strict set of 20 interventions that you learn, and they're specifically designed to help people with all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think music had anything to do with. Like you can help people to retrain their gait, if they walk unevenly. You can help people to get their speech back after a stroke. You can help people with physio things. There's a myriad of different things. So I learned all these, and I liked all that, but I like to embed those within like a really beautiful, flowing, client-led, free session that has all sorts of other stuff. And sometimes the client might not feel, frankly, like working on that therapeutic goal. So we can just do something nice and have a lovely time. And I don't apologize for that because I think a lot of my clients just want to have a really lovely time. They've often got a lot of challenges going on in their lives, and music can offer this sort of like beautiful moment and connection, and pleasure for people as well. And it can also be used as a pain relief. So I've often been in physio sessions and someone's undergoing some painful movements, and you can play and really help someone to get through that, which is amazing. So yeah, I'm very lucky, I think, to be doing this work.
I was reading the testimonials, the stories you have in your website, and but one thing that I liked was the tongue song to help someone with speech. Like, can you explain what is it?
Yeah, that was this is the tongue song. Whoever said the tongues should have a song. This is the tongue song. Yeah, it was a silly song. Had a boy who who has cerebral palsy, and so he has some speech, but it's very unclear to anybody except his mum. His mum can understand everything. I sort of could understand 40%, but after quite a while. But I worked with a speech and language therapist, and she said the problem is that his tongue, he can't do this and that movement. He needs to be able to move his tongue from side to side. And also for his swallowing, he needs to strengthen certain muscles. So I said, well, why don't I, create a tongue song where it directs him to do these fun movements. So we had a sort of lolly on either side so he could, direct his tongue to each side. But the great thing about the music is, instead of just saying to someone, can you make your tongue go side to side for 5 minutes? It's so boring. Within a song, and it's all a bit of a joke, and you can obviously change the dynamics according to how someone's feeling. You can really rev them up or calm them down. So we just had a very, very jolly time using that directive song. So I've done a few songs like that. Like again, people listening, I work with children with neurodiversity, and you might not know that this is a wonderful thing. I created songs to help people with things like getting dressed, or going to sleep or waking up. Instead of your alarm, why not have a I've got a song called This Is Your Nice Alarm Clock, which I sing to my children because it's horrible being woken up by that horrible beeping, isn't it? And especially for neurodiverse children, having a nice this is your nice alarm clock, singing you awake. Tra la la. So just, lots of songs I've made up to help people, and with the things that they're struggling with. And the dressing song, I shared it with a few people, and they were like, oh, this has made it so much better for my child to get dressed because they couldn't remember the sequence. Of course, it's all in the song, and it's quite a funky, like bluesy one. And it had all these funny things like, don't put your pants on your head and stuff. I mean, it was for a sort of 9-year-old boy, so I wanted to make it not boring. So yeah, there's things like that unless you know about it, you're not necessarily going to seek it out. So, as I say, children with neurodiversity, there's so much that music can offer there beyond just, the regulation is great. And I've got lots of actually free resources, for people helping them with those transition times. Music that helps you get from one activity to another, music for the car, music for, if your child's going to school and they're worried, or, things like that can help so, so much. But again, unless you kind of know about it, it's not sort of something that's you know what I mean, widely advertised. You know, if your children's child is struggling with certain activities like sequencing, you wouldn't necessarily jump to, oh, well, I'll get someone to write a song that that's, you
Yeah.
know, helps them. So yes, it's great. It's very imaginative as well. You can use it in lots of different ways.
Yeah, no, that's very nice. Intuitively, you can think about just that you can associate mo a certain mood to a song. So like everybody could have that song to like to have more energy or before to go to bed, something calmer.
Absolutely, yeah,
So it makes
yeah.
sense.
That's right. I think though the sort of soothing aspect is what music's most sort of famous for. So whenever I say I'm a music therapist, people often think, oh, well, that's all about soothing people and relaxing people, which it often can be. And you know, I've seen, for example, I work with a woman who's had a brain injury, and unfortunately, she's very dysregulated on a regular basis. So when I first started with her, I visit her in a care home. I mean, she's a woman of my age, you know, very sadly happened to her quite young. I mean, not I'm young, but you know, she's not a great age kind of thing. And when I sometimes go in, she's literally climbing the walls. I mean climbing the walls, and she tears clothes and rips things with her teeth. You know, she's very dysregulated. She's trying to sort of feel better. And when I first started, you know, the carer said, "Oh, I don't think she's going to be up for music today." And a couple of times I then went away because I wasn't sufficiently confident that I didn't know, you know, quite how that was going to go. And it's quite, you know, without full experience of everybody's condition, you don't know what can happen. So, anyway, if we can just get the music started, it's like a miracle has occurred. I mean, she literally goes from tearing clothes with her teeth. And we can get this one particular song we always start with, something she really likes is I Will Always Love You, the Dolly Parton song, play it on the keyboard and sing. And I cue the lyrics, so that cueing helps her as well, just hearing that, giving cueing of the line. But I do that at the beginning, and then literally about 5 minutes later, we can be chatting about, stuff from her life and 80s pop music. And I mean, not little conversations, but the level of regulation it induces, it's sort of unbelievable. And there's someone called Raymond Leone, I think his name is. He writes blogs, brilliant blogs, and one of his blogs was called "If You Could See What I See," and that's what I'd love to be able to show people. I can't show people this client because that you have client protection, but if people could see from someone tearing some of their teeth, and I just literally every week go there on Thursday morning, start the music, and you've got to believe it to see it. She's just calms right down. And then after a little while, she'll be singing with me. And then she starts to remember all the lyrics to all these songs. She knows loads. And then if we're feeling really good, I've got her a guitar. So we'll get a little guitar out, and it's just unbelievable. Can't believe my own doing. I mean, I know it's music, it's not me, but or well, perhaps it's a combination of the both because she knows me now. But yeah, it's sort of, as I say, known for that, for the calming down thing. But of course, it can be used to for other, different emotions as well. So you might be trying to sort of engage someone or rev things up or raise their energy levels. With clients with dementia and things, you're often looking to sort of provoke good memories and help them to have conversations and things like that. So it's, again, got a lot of uses that you wouldn't necessarily know about, too many to number. That's why I'm always very keen to spread the word about it, because even someone like me who's really into music, I wasn't really aware of music therapy to my 30s.
Yeah.
I didn't train till my 30s. It wasn't like something I knew all about just because I was in music. So
Yeah, I think it, it's a moment now where we are more and more aware of what's going on, like in neurodiversity. We see in schools as well, the kids are all together. Before they were more kind of separate. If there was some kind of if there was autism or things like that, now they are all in the same school. It's And it's good to get to know these therapies, and instead of things that looked more intrusive that were done before, like.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think you're right. And I mean, I do go and visit a couple of kids in schools. They're in mainstream schools, and I take them out for some music therapy, and it really helps because they can just relax, and we can have a little chat if they want. But lots of autistic children don't want to chat. They want to play, and then we interact through the music. Which is a tremendous outlet for people for whom words are very difficult. You devise ways of talking with music. And it's a bit of a cliche, but many children with autism are musical, and not all, but they can have. Someone explained it to me like it can be sort of like an almost an overwiring in some areas of the brain, like so they're really well developed, and which is wonderful because you can discover some hidden talents. Sometimes people have said, "Oh, my child's not very musical," and then they get in to music therapy and we're like, "Ha we might want to review that because they can memorize a tune like." In 2 seconds, which most neurotypical people would find much harder. So it's thrilling when you find these talents, and then of course, you might get into songwriting, so they can talk about feelings, or you can help them talk about feelings, or you might, depending on the person, there's one boy I'm thinking of, just excited him by bringing in an electric guitar. I mean, obviously, he's 10 years old, he wants an electric guitar. Like, let's do it and let's get him playing something really funky so he feels really cool, so he doesn't always feel like sort of sometimes children can feel a little bit, the odd one out in some ways because they're not learning things in the same way or whatever. So I'm always wanting to find the things that people can do, and they often do find things in music, and just the relaxation, the change of scene and everything. But I think also it's important, even if people aren't able to access music therapy one to one, because I realize, it can be expensive for people, just to know the calming effect of music. So you could just help your child with a bit of music, couldn't you, if you knew the right things to play? And teachers as well could give, if someone was really dysregulated, maybe give them some headphones, have a little listen to their favorite tracks or whatever. So I think it's just so valuable. It's probably a bit of an underused tool, really, I would say.
Yeah, and actually, that remind me that because I meditate and I use like it's guided meditations, and I have a music and voice, but I have the music without the voice as well. So I put it on sometimes when my sons were a little bit distressed, and actually it did help.
Yes,
And it's very
yeah.
very calming music. And one of my sons is going to is doing a class in his school that is about doing a rock band. So it's been for the last year. He's been learning the electric guitar, and they are in a
Mm.
little band. So
Oh God, you can just get your children into music. I mean, obviously not all children are into music, and you can't force it, can you? If they're not, they're not. That's absolutely fine. They've probably got many other interests. But from what I've seen, if you can find that engagement with something that's not a screen, and gives them so much pleasure. And I think with the guitar, like you said, if you can just get those first few chords, because I'm not actually a guitarist. I play the guitar quite a lot, but it's not one of the instruments I trained in. So I've had to pick up along the way because everyone loves the guitar. So if you can just learn those first few chords, and then you find, oh, I can actually play a pop song. You can play a pop song with two or three chord positions, really. When you're first starting. I've got my son actually, he's 10, and I got him just, to get over that little bit where you can't do it and it's all too much trouble. Playing the first three chords for Wild Thing, which of course, when you're 10 and you can go dun, 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 and he was all like, woo, and you could see him just suddenly realizing, oh, and it makes so much noise, and it's exciting, and especially for quite shy people, I think it's sort of like, that's what I found with opera singing, like to make a big noise is it's quite empowering, really. So I think, shy kids on guitars, it's just great. It's so fun.
And it's social as well. It reminds me, I was a scout in Italy, and I was a teenager, so there would be always a couple of guys. Yeah, there were guys, there were no girls at that time, who were very good with the guitar. So we ended up in a circle singing songs all the time.
Oh, that's just so nice, isn't it? I mean, it's that stuff that you remember in life, actually. That's very special time, isn't it? And you're remembering it because, the pleasure, frankly, the dopamine that you get, oxytocin, because you get a lot of the bonding hormone when you make music with other people. And just the exchange and the non-verbal communication you get through music, isn't it? And when I used to be in orchestras and things, everything is about developing communication, and you can see how it does develop people's social skills that, struggle with that because there's so much inherent kind of turn taking in music, so when I do improvisations and things with children, um, I play a bit, you play a bit, I play a bit, you play a bit, I play a bit of what you played, and then you play a bit of what I played. It's a conversation in the music. And I mean, I found that very exciting when I've worked with children with autism, that initially can often be one-way traffic. It's all had this boy that used to say, copy me, copy me, copy me. It was always like, what, his way. And then one day, just suddenly, I was doing a technique called musical stimulation, where you make up something, you leave a gap. Or you can do it with songs, like, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little, and it makes you want to go star, doesn't it? Because you're like, I must join in with that. So that sort of mechanism in music is very useful because people really want to complete a sort of musical phrase. So I was doing something like that. I was improvising a song around numbers because he really likes numbers. So I always use stuff that people really like, because how else are you going to engage them? And I was leaving off numbers. And then I remember leaving off, this end of a phrase. And then he came in with something that echoed what I was doing for the first time. The first time he went to something that wasn't you do what I do. It was, oh, I'm going to do what you do. Just then it was a musical conversation instead of it just being, we're doing it all this way. So anyway, sorry, that was a big digression there, but I know what you're saying about that sort of lovely feeling of being around a campfire. And yeah, music is inherently social because we often do that in groups, and coming up with something together, and even in bands and things, you've got to work out who does what and who has a solo, and who's going to sing and who's going to do. It's all very sort of social skills are involved highly, aren't they, in any kind of organized activity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I loved, but I love opera as well, like and concerts, and opera. Like for me, the best thing was to look at the orchestra, and it's really like looking at them all working together. And I really love the Rossini and Barbero Sevilla.
The yeah, yeah, oh, it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Oh my God, I've sung Rosina, and in fact, yeah, a close member of my family is named after named after that character. But Rosina, yeah, is the most beautiful, and the runs up and down and up and down. It's like vocal athletics. You just never stop in Rossini, and Rossini's sense of humor. I mean, must have been a right laugh. So funny in his music. I recently did because I do, solo singing at the weekend. So I did the Petite Messe Solennelle by Rossini. So the Little Solemn Mass it's called. And this it's the most gigantic mass you've ever heard in your life. And it's not solemn at all. It's extremely jolly. It goes
Okay.
with his usual runs up and down. He was just having a total laugh. You think, well, this is very serious piece. The little solemn mass, and it's not at all solemn. It's just so I think he was a giggle, Rossini. And I also, it's really fascinating that I think he lived till 80 or something, but he stopped composing halfway through his life. He'd just done
Okay.
it, like composed all these brilliant operas and pieces, and then just had like this really long retirement. I would love to have met him. I think his pieces are fabulous, and they're beautiful to sing. They're good to sing. He's a good it's really interesting what's very singable and what is much harder, like Mozart.
It's so nice that like after so much time, people still love it so much. It's and people still laugh, you know, it's still funny and it's not
Mm.
didn't age. There are lots of good classical music didn't age.
Yeah, if it's good, it gets passed down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does, you know. I mean, I'm at pains to bring my children's attention to the best, you know, the great stuff, the great stuff. And in fact, um I often bring things like Beethoven, things like Bach, things like Schubert. I bring that to my sessions sometimes, you know, and the sort of idea that, you know, kids won't like classical music, things like that. I mean, I love to do all kinds of music, so I'm happy to do pop and, you know, whatever. I'm not snooty or anything about music. I don't have that opinion at all. But you know, playing somebody a beautiful piece of classical music is great, you know, and people love it. Just, you know, I think I don't like to have barriers around, you know, I use what I like. You know, sometimes I'll sort of use a classical piece but kind of for a sort of therapeutic function. So I'm thinking there's Mozart's The Magic Flute that sometimes, you know, kids like that because of all the kind of pantomime characters and things. And there's a duet. I don't know if you know the Magic Flute, but there's a duet between the two sort of bird characters
Ah,
where
yeah, is
they
it the one that goes really, really high?
yeah, that's it, the Queen
With
of
the
the
mouth.
Night, that's right. And then there's Papageno, who's the sort of bird catcher
Ah,
and
yeah,
things
yeah.
like that. And then he meets finally a girl, kind of at the end of like a girl bird sort of thing. And they have this sort of pa 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 pa. It's like a sort of fun duet, and they just everything's pa 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 pa. And I used that for a kid that was working on plosive consonants with speech, you know, which you wouldn't necessarily think piece of opera would be a great idea for this child who's put, you know, maybe not even heard of it, but it worked a treat because it was repeating that thing over and over. It's good quality music. It's a great tune. It's Mozart. So why not harness things like that and bring that kind of knowledge in? Um, and yeah, I love to bring just, you know, really high quality things. Why not bring a bit of Mozart, you know? You're not trying to say, right, we're doing Mozart for an hour now, and you have to be quiet and listen. You're not doing that sort of approach. You're
Mm.
just using bits here and there that people will enjoy, and it might introduce them to, you know, looking up further and finding out more about things as well, which is nice.
Yeah. And actually, sometimes when in school, there's this habit of making everything serious, but lots of this classical music is very funny. It's very uh, so you can enjoy it a lot, but sometimes the teaching way is like let's do Mozart now, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and they're
that's
like
it.
no,
It's the way it's presented, isn't it? It's the way it's
yeah,
presented.
yeah,
I
that's
think
it.
that's it as well. And I think people they catch your enthusiasm. If you're genuinely passionate about something, you can bring all sorts to people. I mean, there's one client I have, she's had a brain injury, wonderful, wonderful woman, and she's rebuilding her life and she's doing absolutely brilliantly. And when I first went to visit her, I used to sort of play to her and she would listen and she would just be able to sort of lie there and sort of semi-asleep and things. Now, a year and a half later, she's playing the piano for the whole session. We see, yeah, she's progressed to such a ridiculous extent. It's just absolutely amazing. And so we're doing like a hybrid lesson now because she's up to that. She's up to learning to play the piano. She wanted to play the piano. And one day I said to her, well, one of the first pieces I learned, which I adored, was Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, which is, you know, that very famous slow movement, that dun, 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 you know, just sort of very beautiful, um, sort of melancholy, gorgeous piece. We should have my piano here to show you, but um, and of course, you'd think, well, that's very highbrow Beethoven, you know, you shouldn't bring that to a beginner, but it's a repeating pattern. So you don't need to necessarily read the notes to be able to play, you know, the first 8 bars or so of Beethoven's Moonlight, which is the first thing I sort of learned. My grandpa taught me that. Um, and it's, you know, it's a wonderful thing. So you sort of can play at a higher level than you can read, as it were. And of course, we're learning to read music as well. But I got her going with that. It was such a thrill for her to play this amazing bit of Beethoven. So again, it's the way it's presented because I was so enthusiastic about it. If I'd have said it in a boring way, maybe she wouldn't have been so keen. But I was like, oh my God, you've got to hear this because it genuinely it comes from the heart, really. I do feel so passionate about some of these pieces. Yeah, it's what excites me, I suppose, really.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
And seeing your website, I thought about Oliver Sacks. I don't know if you studied or you read it because I read the
Yeah.
man who mistook his wife for a hat, and there
Hmm.
was this story, and I think he's really the man of the title, who really had this kind of different perceptions. And one time he went to grab his wife, like thinking that it was a hat because he had I don't remember exactly what it was, some kind of brain injury, I think.
That's it.
But
Yes. Yeah.
I think he was a musician, and so because humming music or singing or something like that helped him to do things, to lace his shoes, to put his
Yeah.
clothes on, something like
Yes.
that. Like going back to the music, he really started to help him in his life when it was kind of, I don't know, he had his perceptions that were all weird and different, so he couldn't do the normal things.
Yeah, he's a wonderful writer, isn't he? I mean, I love his stuff, and that is. I mean, it's been a while since I've read that, but I do remember that story and thinking, oh my goodness, that's just so incredible. And the way he writes just so sort of, captures something so interesting and intriguing, isn't it? But yeah, the idea of, and I've kind of had this idea, developed it over time of like a kind of earworm that would help people remember. Do you know what I mean by an earworm? Like something that goes around in your head, like a little tune that's a bit annoying,
Yeah.
but can help you remember something you need to remember. So, um, I was giving a talk to some speech and language therapists the other day. They were interested in singing and they were not sort of so confident always about using singing, but they know it will help in their sessions kind of thing. So I did this free session just helping them to get a bit more confident with singing, really. And I suggested, when people are having trouble remembering things, you could just use a tune that like when the Saints go marching in, that's a tune that lots of people knows. And then put together some words like that you need to remember. So um, you know, da-da-dee-dee-dee-dum-da-da-da. When I leave the house, I must not forget my keys. Oh, when I leave the house, I must not forget my keys. It was something like that that just creates, you could create a few earworms and record them or whatever. And again, these are quite easy. Well, maybe they're not that easy, but they are things that you could possibly use for people, and an earworm might stick in a brain that's been damaged in some way better than just saying it or a list you have to read. Um, and singing, of course, amazingly is housed sort of in different areas in the brain to speech.
Yeah.
So, which amazed me when I first sort of found out that. But, sometimes the singing part is still sort of intact. So you can help people with getting some kind of words back using singing. So, brains that are trying to remember things before they go out of the house or whatever, can benefit certainly from this idea of little fragments of music attached to whatever it is they're trying to remember. It could just be a tiny short tune, but there's lots of videos showing people, with dementia and things in groups and introducing everybody in the group, and they would sort of show them going around and everyone's names. And of course, then the individuals couldn't remember anybody's names after that first going around. So then they put everybody's names into a song, and then they sang the song a few times, and then of course they could all remember each other's names.
That's
It's sort of like it really is very effective. It's amazing to watch things like that.
It reminds me, we were studying in high school with a friend, it was some kind of science thing. And she was like, I will never be able to remember this. So I put it in a song.
Yes, exactly.
Did it, and I still remember it. It was
Oh,
for her interrogation, for her, exam. But I remember it still. That thing she invented.
yeah, that's so clever to think of that. And I think again, sort of people listening, it might be just a thing that, if you don't think of it, you think, wow, that's such a good idea because, a lot of us have kids that are trying to remember boring facts for tests or whatever. If you've got a boring test, why not think of a song that you know really well and just replace those words. So if you're not a music therapist, you're not able to come up with a new tune, why not use a tune, the alphabet tune or whatever it is, you can come up with things that can help people. And I like that about music therapy. It's these practical ways, isn't it? So it's the creative and the otherworldly and the transportation, but also like just some practical little thing that you're trying to remember, which is so pleasing, isn't it? It's great.
Now it gave me a good idea for because my son is 8 and he's going to have an exam for times tables. So I think that could be a nice song. Times table.
Yes, he needs a song. He does need a song. And also, it just makes it more fun for him as well. And also, why not get him as he's learning the song? If you hold up to, well, I don't know if you've got anything like tambourines or just something that you can hit. Actually, you could just do it on your hands. You just go across if you get people to cross the midline when they're trying to remember information, it makes it stick a lot better. So you could get him doing the beat, crossing like that the whole time. And plus, and you can walk around doing that as well. You have to walk backwards, of course, but it just can, I don't know, it's doing something good in the brain. It's getting the connections better, but it's fun as well. And I think anything you can do to make boring things more fun. I used to get my son, I'm remembering this during COVID. We had one of these like exercise ball things that we never use, like a half ball. We've sadly given it away now, which the children were really peeved about. It's so, like a half globe thing.
Oh yeah.
And I got him bouncing on it to do his times tables. So whilst he was saying them, we had him bouncing up and down. And things like that, just to sort of, or you can even just have music on in the background, couldn't you, whilst you're bouncing and
Yeah. You have a trampoline as well, can bounce on the trampoline, can jump.
yeah, exactly, chanting it, as you go. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, it's good just to make things more fun, isn't it? That it might be a bit boring otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a lot in school. Sometimes I still get the I don't want to go to school, that there's
Same.
something still. And I remember seeing a little bit about Maria Montessori. That actually some of her methods of teaching are in all schools. Like there's like small furniture, and there are the kids can maybe have furniture their size, so they can be a little bit independent, but not everything. So, and one thing she really liked was to be fun. If it's fun, they learn better. And this is not really in the mainstream school yet.
No, no. Yeah, I must say, I agree with that totally. But I think they probably could quite easily introduce into school some singing of times tables or whatever. Um, without going too crazy, you could sort of introduce that, couldn't you? Or, I mean, I think many schools are kind of switching on to this now. I mean, certainly some of the special schools, I've worked in special schools for, children with special needs. And, um, often the day is started with music, even if it's just using a link to get something on a screen or whatever. You personally don't have to produce the music. I think that can be a bit of a barrier if you think, well, I can't play the guitar or whatever. You don't need to be able to do that. You just need the resources, really, don't you, to be able to do that. But it puts everybody in a better mood if you start the day with some music, and you often sort of forget that it's there. But actually, one of these SLT ladies that I was speaking to, she said, um, I can't get my son revved up in the morning. He has, I think it's ADHD. I can't get him out of bed. It's hard to. And I said, well, why don't you put the Eye of the Tiger on there? First thing.
Yeah,
Like, why not? That's gonna, do you know what I mean? Like, that's gonna get you going, isn't it? And,
yeah,
and also is rather fun as well. So I think, yeah, I think where you can, introducing fun elements into life, into boring or drudgery inducing things is great, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Why not?
And so now are you doing music therapy mainly, or are you doing singing as well?
Yeah, yeah. So, well, I do sort of music therapy mainly during the week, and then singing tends to be more at the weekends. I mean, occasionally I will take myself off for a time to have a rehearsal period, but I mean, generally speaking, the companies I work for are chamber opera, so we don't have very long. There's often things that we know very well that's kind of standard repertory. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I used to be um, in an opera chorus, which was a sort of full-time job, sort of job commitment. But and I enjoyed that. But when I had my second child, I just felt that I didn't want to be out every single evening. And a lot of the ladies that were full-time choristers just, would say, "Oh, it's really hard when you can't see your children," and I wasn't prepared to do that. I mean, and to be honest, I love singing. I enjoy singing in chorus, and obviously being like on a big stage at the Colosseum, it's exciting. I can remember, like being in Carmen, and we all sat with our legs dangling off the stage, and this powerful orchestra, and the excitement, and all the people. It's amazing. Um, but I still like having my own part more in a way. I'm less keen on singing like with everybody on the same part, if you see what I mean. That doesn't do it for me as much
Mm.
as having your own part. Not so much, I mean, I am a soloist, so I do sing solos. But that's again not what floats my boat as much as singing in ensembles, duets, trios,
Yeah,
things like that. So I love that. So still pretty busy with singing work because there's been lots of companies I've worked with repeatedly over the years, and they kind of ask me back, kind of thing. Um, but then I do my music therapy in the week. So yeah, I go out to clients, go to visit them in either at home or in school. And I've got one or two associates now working with me. So sometimes I organise for another person to go out. And I'm also developing online sort of offerings. So I want to do one or two more group things, for people that want to access a music therapist for more kind of general well-being things, um, rather than that kind of one-to-one therapy. And in fact, I'm developing ideas about having a kind of caregivers membership. So I've noticed that a lot of the people I go to, the people that are caring for them, I'm not talking about professional carers, but,
yeah,
parents and things, I often feel that they could do with some input and support because it can often be a very tough life for those people that are supporting all the time and not having much, you know, input themselves. So I've been developing that. So yeah, just I've got quite a few ideas and things of things I just kind of want to do everything. That's the only problem. So, it's
yeah. No, fantastic. So it looks like it's really helping people, and it's nice.
that's what I want. I want to I mean that probably sounds a bit cheesy, but it gives me so much pleasure to help people. It's not like jobs I've had in the past where I didn't really see how in a concrete way it was really helping. I'm talking here office jobs and things that I've had, when I was younger. Um but yeah, so I mean, I'm thinking particularly of a client I visit on a Friday, and I've got to go miles. It's southeast London, and it's like a really horrible schlep. And there's a young man there. He's wheelchair bound. He's got cerebral palsy and very little movement. And I would slog that whole M25 to see him smile like he does when we're together. The time goes like that. Like I'm so in the zone. I bring all my instruments. He's beaming away a lot of the time. I get him to choose, would you like this instrument or that instrument? And he can choose with his eyes. So he doesn't move his hands, but he can choose with his eyes. He's got a hand that he can hold something with, so we often get him to hold. And it's just beautiful. I know it's beautiful. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing to do, to bring, and it brings me pleasure as well. So it's win-win, really. There's no element of, oh, you know, how long's this, to me, and I don't have any of that, which is why I know I'm in the right work, because I love my work, and I don't have that awful clock watchy sort
Yeah,
of thing, So my only problem is trying to, sort of see as many people as I can, not killing myself. That's the
yeah,
that's the thing. I don't want to um overcommit, and then it's, you want to stay well yourself in order to deliver the best therapy you can.
yeah. But yeah, it's fantastic too. Like you lose track of time when you are there.
That's right. It's that flow state that we were talking about earlier, isn't it? It's that great feeling, which is good, I think, for your own well-being. But yeah, obviously for the person you're with. But we were talking, weren't we, about activities where, you do get in that flow state and you do feel good. And those activities we just know instinctively are great for humans. And we know instinctively it's better than video games. Although it doesn't, I'm not anti-video games. I'm sure there's lots of great things in those as well. Yeah, but in moderation. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
challenge for modern parents, I think.
yeah, yeah.
Isn't it?
Actually, for me personally, like I go in flow state when I do my art,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I I used to work in the video games industry and play a lot of the video games.
Did you? Oh.
Yeah, and actually that was initially it was like an addiction. It could
Mhm.
be
Mhm.
addictive, and yeah, when it's like an addiction, it doesn't feel good. It feels like you can't stop.
A compulsion, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's quite interesting that distinction, isn't it, between an addiction and, because I'm just sort of comparing my head to practicing, which is kind of like a repetitive
yeah, it is.
compulsion. I mean, I think might be a bit of a generalization, but many people I know that are into music maybe have some neurodiverse aspects to their personalities, because the ability to repeat hundreds of times is possibly not neurotypical. I don't know, but I enjoy that. I like repeating. I like getting to the end and then we'll go back to the beginning. I like, and you need to like that to practice. But that's sort of a bit different to the sort of more consuming aspect of like gaming, isn't it? It's not sort of leading towards producing anything in a way. But I don't know. It's an interesting question, isn't it? That sort of
Yeah.
like a healthy addiction and an unhealthy addiction. Yeah.
For me, it was video games and it was TV as well and watching movies. So it can be, I think that's the good and the bad. Like the good can be on learning as well. Like, for example, if you watch a movie many times, you find nuances and it can be something that it helps you create something else later. Like, but eventually you can maybe make your own movies, but you can make something else that is you have some kind of influence from that movie you watched many
That's
times.
right. Yeah, like a research thing almost.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but yeah, there's something in video game like yeah, it depends on the theme of the video games as well. But some video games like are like puzzles and things like that. So it's there is an element of kind of math, geometry on it, solving problems.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I mean, I think video games, they obviously use your brain in a very powerful way. And I think anybody that thinks, well, it's just rubbish and that's the end of it, that's not the case. I mean, if you see your child doing it, I mean, I don't play any video, I have no interest in it myself, but when I see my child, I'm like, and I've occasionally, like when he was desperate for a partner to play with, like Roblox or something, I gave it a go and I was like, this is really hard to make my character to do what I want it to do. And that is a huge demand on the brain, isn't it? I think it's very powerful. But I suppose the worry is just that it for me, the worry is that it takes up a lot of time, and perhaps that's taking them away from developing other interests that might for me, it was always music. So it was always sort of, and I didn't know how that was going to work out, but it did work out as being part of my life. And I suppose, my kids have some interests in writing and things like that. I just want to make sure that we promote that as well as them having fun on video games. But I don't devalue it. And when my son's proud that he's done this and that with his car, or whatever, I don't sort of say, well, that's not worth anything, because you're not getting grade certificates in music, that's not worth anything. I think that would be the wrong way to go about it. So I think that they are amazing, and the people that produce them, I mean, hats off them. I mean, that's incredible skills and talents are involved, aren't they? I mean, behind the scenes with that, it's incredible.
I think for um, yeah, there's one thing I see in that I don't like, and I seen it like in my kind of addiction to video games. That's like they may get very nervous when they play, um,
Yes, yes,
even kind of angry because they kind of
yes.
go through something. And I seen that there were moments where we went to the park, and in the end we stayed in the park 3 hours, and it was so like in the flow for them. And I thought, well, this certainly feels better for them than being angry at a video game.
Yes, yes.
But there is that satisfaction sometimes of like, yeah, for example, not being able to move a character at the beginning, and then you start to be able to do it, you start to pass the level. Um, but yeah, there is always that I don't know, there's some kind of nervous
Yeah, I've
feeling
seen
that
that
comes
myself. I know
with it.
exactly what you mean, like sort of like a high intensity and sometimes, things with little friends or something going wrong and upsets over things like that, and it's difficult because you don't want to intrude into your child's world, but you do need to make sure you're keeping an eye on what's going on. And I think children probably need help with moderating it. I think that's the thing, and that's very hard for us because we're always so busy on all our blooming, especially if you're creating a business and things like that, as we know, like that is all consuming and you're constantly, and if you then have to sort of entertain people and take them to places, but it is so important, isn't it, to try and keep that balance. So I mean, I can't say that I've always hit that balance myself, but I have seen, that the kids do crave those sort of more quality kind of going out experiences as well, like, going to a museum or something. And you see when you take them there, you're like, oh yeah, this is so good for them. You know it is. You just know it is instinctively. You don't need science behind it to know. You just know. So yeah, it's just that balance really, isn't it? And it's not
Yeah.
sort of being disrespectful to video games because obviously there's so much, joy that people do have in them, isn't there? Up to a point, and the genius that is behind creating these things, you know.
Yes, and another thing that comes to mind is building things. Like, for example, a game like Minecraft, you can build houses or anything, and I see my children building nice things, but then they build things with construction, with Lego as well, with their hands. And I remember going to the Tate Modern, or no, Tate Contemporary in London, and they have this huge activities for the children in this huge space. And once it was about building like a wood house, and they gave them hammers and nails.
Oh, wow. That's
It
so
was so
great.
much fun for them.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing. That would be so good. Then,
Yes,
yeah,
they
so
used to
many
go to
lovely
that.
things. Yeah, that's right. If you can, get everyone off the screen to something,
Yeah.
you're doing very well, aren't you?
It was very, very nice to talk to you.
Really nice. We've had a great chat, haven't we? I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah, so much. My art is available in London at the Earth Space in Hoxton. There's puzzles, there's original artworks, There's lots of hearts in time for San Valentine, that is at the end of next week. There will be a nice display outside on Saturdays for the market, and as merkabas I made. There's a love potion, and there's prints and cards, and heart is sold at House of Leila in Gravesend. You can buy my cards and necklaces and original art as well. The links are below. In my website you can find a new free document you can download. It's called Beliefs That Support Us for the Life We Want, and it's a list of 6 limiting beliefs that we can transform in supporting beliefs. And then an example is something that happened just this week, and this is my son, who is 8, who was saying, I'm so unlucky because he will lose when he was playing video games with his brother. So I facilitated a psyche balance with him when we installed the new supporting beliefs, I am lucky. And the same evening, just a few hours after this, he came to me all happy and he said, I won 3 matches today in the video game. So actually children are a very good example on how balancing with psyche and changing the subconscious beliefs can really, we can really see results very quickly. And that was really heartwarming for me to see him happy and feeling lucky. So you can download the free document from my website. The link is below. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like this content, please subscribe, comment, like, and I see you next time.